Welcome to today's episode of Hang In There. I'm incredibly excited to introduce a very special guest, Jenny Green, the Housing and Supportive Services Director of Alexandra House. Alexandra House is a nonprofit organization that provides free confidential support to survivors of domestic, sexual, and relationship violence, as well as human trafficking. Their services include a 24-hour emergency shelter, legal advocacy, support groups, education programs, and housing assistance, all aimed at empowering survivors, educating the community, and breaking the cycle of violence. Jenny has dedicated over 3 decades to supporting families and individuals affected by domestic violence. Today, she oversees services such as the emergency shelter, follow-up programs, support groups, and aging services. She's also played a pivotal role in securing funding to help homeless families and survivors of domestic violence find and maintain permanent housing. Jenny is an active member of several committees focused on reducing homelessness, both locally and statewide. Her passion and leadership are so inspiring, and we're lucky to have her here with us today. So let's dive in. Welcome, Jenny.
Oh, welcome, Missy.
So grateful to have you.
Yes, and I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Now, you've been a part of the Alexandra House for a long time, since 1991, correct?
Correct.
Yes, and I'm sure you've touched many lives over 3 decades.
They've touched mine as well, so.
I'm sure they have, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's immeasurable what you're doing. I'd like to start off with just what's new at Alexandra House.
Well, our biggest news is that we just opened our Linus Pet Haven program, and we opened that up in January of this year. We are the first shelter actually in the metro area, domestic violence shelter, that allows families to bring a pet into the program when they are in need of emergency shelter. Statistically, families, and you can read about this all the time, there are people that will not leave an abusive relationship because of fear for their pet. Absolutely. There's not a place for their pet to go. And oftentimes the pet is their only emotional support. And so we're trying to break down that barrier by having space available where the pet and the pet parent actually can live in the same space. That, we don't have a different kennel for the pets. They live in the same room. That's
amazing.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. I know it was a barrier for me and my children too. Mm-hmm. If I would have separated my children from the beloved dog.
Yep.
That was a worry. That was an immediate worry for me too. Right. And I didn't go.
No. And I think too, even if you are in the relationship that is still abusive, that pet is still providing you that emotional support. And so you don't want to leave that pet. And oftentimes that pet is often used as another tactic or another way to manipulate you to either going or staying or whatever the case may be. So happy to report, since we've opened, we have served, I think it's 33 or 34 pets.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's been absolutely great.
That's amazing. And it is true. They can be kind of a vehicle for trapping a person in the house where they don't have anywhere to bring a pet, or maybe they don't have a family member who can accept their pet.
Exactly. Or they use the pet and physically abuse the pet.
That's a big worry.
Yeah.
And children think of that too.
Mm-hmm. Did about a year's worth of research on it. And it was a process where we were really thoughtful in how we wanted to do it.
That's super important.
What's funny, the amount of financial support that we have received in opening this program, it's almost like you got your pet people and your human donors. And so we've just been overwhelmed with the support. We get all of our animal supplies, food, toys, crates, all of that has been donated. So
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Yep. People understand.
Absolutely.
And we had to speak up about it, and we had to have somebody had to say something. Yep. And that's why it's so important to talk about these things and really bring awareness to these things. Right. And people are willing to help. And that's it's so reassuring for survivors.
Right.
That support.
Yep.
Even from the outside, from people you don't even know. I would like to dive in a little bit more about what inspired you to work as an advocate for survivors and what drew you to it.
It was back in 1990, a senior in college, doing my degrees in psychology, just a bachelor's degree. I always knew I wanted to go into a helping field where I was helping others that weren't necessarily recognized by others as needing help. And I always thought I would work with juveniles. And then I did an internship here as a senior and just fell in love.
Really?
Fell in love with the work, with what it stood for, the people I got to meet. You know, I can still say 30 some years later, almost 35 years later, I learned so much every single day. And it's not me teaching or helping or supporting, and I do help support others, obviously, but what they give us and what they give each other,
Right.
that is what is incredible. That's why I do the work.
It's inspiring also.
It's so inspiring. And, you know, when I get to see, you know, in a 2-week time span, a child that wouldn't even look you in the eye and very clingy, now coming up and giving me hugs or talking more. You seen a mom that, you know, was physically assaulted. Her bruises are starting to heal. She's starting to talk more. So it's an honor to work here is what it is.
That. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so important. You just never know where you're going to wind up. It's fascinating to me how life kind of works out and puts you in positions that you never saw coming. And the rewards you get. And
the, you know, I will look, and I don't know if I had shared that with you before, but, you know, for somebody just even walking in the door into the shelter or someone just calling the crisis line, that is a huge step that not everyone is able to take.
It's hard.
It's hard. And that alone, just those 2 small things, that's a success. And that can bring a smile. That can make your heart warm because you know what? She walked through that door. Maybe she only stays one night, but she got something. She had a safe space. She got to talk to somebody. And maybe next time if she comes, or maybe somewhere else, but maybe next time she stays a little longer.
Absolutely.
Gains more strength, you know, whatever the case may be.
Small act of resistance there. Exactly. And that phone call, for me, that first phone call was so difficult, and saying it out loud is hard. It's very hard. So you hang up the phone from that first phone call, regardless of what you do.
Right.
And you've gained some strength. And you might not be able to identify it right away, but you have.
Yep.
And that's why that advocate on the phone is so important. And they do an amazing job. And they are very much behind the scenes, right?
Right.
Not many people realize or recognize what they do. And their job is so, so valuable.
Well, and literally when you think about, we answer about 4,500 calls a year on our helpline. Every one of those calls is different. They're similar in a sense that they need help, but so many individual stories are so unique that you have to really be in tune to what that person is wanting, needing. Are they just wanting you to be quiet while they verbalize? You know, they're like, what would you do? And it's like, well, what would you do? You know, so we're constantly turning things around to empower the person that's calling. But
exactly. Like in therapy, right? You want them to come up with it on their own, but you're helping them with the tools to find out. Exactly. Yeah, that's a hard job to do because you really can't prepare fully.
No, you can't prepare. You don't have all your senses available. So, you know, you and I were looking at each other. So I get a sense of, you know, are you engaged, not engaged? Are you, you know, you're missing some of those.
Right. And trying to pick apart what a person needs from the phone is very difficult. We also started, and it's been about 2 years now. I started in August of 24. We also implemented a chat line. Beautiful.
For the younger generation. Now it's harder for me because I'm not a quick typer.
Me too.
But it is, you know, for those that don't like to talk on the phone anymore. It's a little more anonymous, and we're able to reach someone that would not otherwise access us. So
that's smart.
Yeah.
And that's evolving. That's a really good idea.
Right.
It's a little bit, you know, it's a good step for a first one. And maybe then they'll make that call, or maybe that's all they need to come to the shelter.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
For Alexandra House, coming into it right out of school, has the vision and the mission changed? Is it, speaking of evolving, right? It kind of has to.
It has to. The mission will always remain the same in the sense of we're here to empower victims of violence. That will never change. We're also here to educate, support, and provide advocacy, not just to the people that we serve, but to the community as a whole. So
I love that.
Yeah. So that will not change. The vision, I remember, fresh out of school, am I going to have a job in 20 years? Because there isn't going to be any more, I was naive.
That's interesting. Right.
I thought,
are we going to nail this?
We're going to cure this problem. There will always be violence in our world, and specifically relationship violence. And it's ever changing on what that violence looks like. So, the vision is to end violence. We can still optimistically work towards that.
Absolutely.
Because if we didn't, then why are we here?
Right.
We also always believe that any form of violence is unacceptable and needs to be held accountable.
There are so many forms of abuse, and that's what gets confusing for people, right? So for me, when I'm calling the advocate and I'm talking to her and she's saying this is abuse, and I have this spark of, oh my gosh, I'm being validated here. I knew something was very wrong.
Right.
And I remember asking, wait a minute, I'm not being hit.
And I've heard that over the years so many different times. Am I being abused? I'm not being hit. My personal philosophy is that, the bruises, the pain, the aches, for the most part will go away. The physical pieces. But all the other abusive tactics that occur in these relationships, that's what takes time for the healing.
Mm-hmm.
You shatter somebody's soul, their sense of self, how they look at the world, how they look at themselves. And, along with the emotional abuse, using the kids, making you feel like you're crazy, putting you down, just even minimizing how you feel as a person, all those different things occur in an abusive relationship. So yes, there's the physical abuse.
Right. And that's easy to identify.
Very easy to identify. Right. This power and control wheel that's used by a lot of different agencies, domestic violence agencies, both on a therapeutic measure and in an advocacy manner. We use these in support groups, this wheel, and it's a power and control wheel, and we have people identify any of these different tactics that are going on in their relationship and talk about them, because it's like you don't realize all of this different stuff that is going on that is leading to you to continue to feel like you're trapped. You wake up one morning, you don't have anybody outside of your home that knows what's going on. You're completely isolated.
Absolutely. And you didn't even realize it.
You know.
It's so nuanced and so it's slow moving sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's very confusing.
Yep. And that's hard too, because, let's say there isn't the physical violence. You still got the perpetrator, holding down a job, the perfect person in the community, goes to their son's basketball games or whatever. And you are a mess legitimately.
Right.
And so people look at you like you're the problem, when in reality, the perpetrator's truly planning this and putting you in a position where you don't have any power.
It's incredible to me because I would never be able to come up with that calculatedness.
No.
And my mind doesn't work that way. So in a lot of, I think, victims in that situation just can't fathom the thought process behind it. So it doesn't even occur to them what's going on. And It's very confusing. Mm-hmm. And it is gradual. Mm-hmm. And you would never expect someone who claims to love you to do something so betraying and calculated and hurtful. And I remember just feeling like I'm just, misunderstanding something, because why would this person who says he loves me want to hurt me?
Right. And then you add in the true cycle.
Exactly.
Of violence, where it's like, if your partner that is supposedly loves you on day 30 of the relationship started calling you every name in the book, started putting you down, started doing all these different tactics in the relationship, the likelihood is you wouldn't stay.
Absolutely.
You know? So again, the cycle increases as time goes on. Different tactics are occurring. You know, in beginning of relationships, whether there's the physical violence or not, things escalate for whatever reason. There's some kind of a blowout of some sort. But then it is, I'm sorry, honey. I didn't mean to do that. I will never treat you again like that. Well, I love you, so I'm gonna believe that. I want this relationship to work.
Absolutely.
And things are okay for a while.
And sometimes they're really great for a little while.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. They can be great. Now, as time goes on, whatever, and it's unique to each relationship, but as time goes on, there's not going to be that apology or honeymoon phase in that relationship anymore. There's not going to be the I'm sorries. There's going to be, this is the way it is.
That's not how I remember it, so that's wrong.
Right. Denying, blaming.
Right.
Yeah. Putting it all back on you. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So at some point they don't feel they have to acknowledge their part. Right.
It makes you second guess yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that continues on years after leaving. I can tell you, I second guess myself, and I've had years of therapy.
Right.
And I'm working on it.
Mm-hmm.
But that connection in your brain that's been made so many times over a long period of time, just it's hard to break.
Yeah. The self-doubt.
Right.
Yep.
It's so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's great about getting somebody out of that environment. Say they come to the shelter
Mm-hmm.
and they get a break and they're able to really look at that in groups and talk about it and get feedback from it. And that's something you really can't do in your home,
Right.
where you're being
Right.
controlled
Yeah.
or watched
Mm-hmm.
to try to pick apart what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy.
And I think, also with, the differences between, going to individual therapy and attending a support group with others is just this sense of, I didn't experience this. I'm not the only person that got suckered.
That's how it feels.
Yeah. In this type of relationship, there's others that went through this same thing. And just to be validated that way, I can tell you, just you and I talking one-on-one that, others have gone through a similar situation. But when you hear somebody right next to you saying something that's very unique to their situation, but yet it triggers you because something similar happened to you as well.
Exactly. Something in your brain's going off.
Uh-huh.
And it brings it back.
Yep.
And it can bring it back very vividly.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean you're weak or not intelligent.
Mm-mm.
This is very manipulative stuff that's going on. It has nothing to do with a person's intelligence level or their ability to recognize things. It's meant to confuse you and meant to manipulate your mind, and it does it.
Right. If you go back to the core, you go back to the intention is to do these things that are hurtful and harmful to a survivor. Like you had said, we're not dumb.
Right.
We're not dumb. If this wasn't going on, where would we be?
Right.
And it's not a fault of ours. It's not I don't got a thing on my forehead that says hurt me.
Right.
And I think that too is hard for some survivors to realize, let's say, on the outside looking in, I have a very well-paid job. I have 2.2 kids. I live in the suburbs, all these different things from the outside. Boy, man, she's got the perfect life.
Absolutely.
But on the inside of those closed doors, she may be a wreck.
And you never know. And
No.
it's another tough piece to that is not being allowed to show your pain and putting on that fake smile.
You have to.
Right.
Mhm.
Or else.
It's hard to leave.
It's very hard.
And not just on an emotional aspect of leaving. I just look at the barriers that I see when people attempt to leave, and there's more barriers for certain populations. That's another thing about the work of being here as an employee. I'm amazed at the strength when people walk through that door. you're leaving everything. Maybe you got your IDs for yourself and your babies, but you get to bring 7 days worth of clothes. It's not a long-term solution. You haven't worked in, several years because you couldn't work.
Right.
So no income, no credit for that matter, because you weren't allowed to have your own checking account or your own credit cards, So all these different things, and yet they still walk through that door and get things accomplished during the time that they're here. It blows me away. Now, when you talk about other aspects or other barriers, especially people of color, what they have to go through, a person that may be an immigrant.
The language barrier, possibly.
The language barrier, trying to access services. We'll have interpreters and things for us internally, but just accessing services and the services and resources, they dry up very, very quickly. So,
right.
As a person who's been in the field, I know by the 10th of the month, resources that I would have access to help my families, I'm not going to have access to anymore.
Okay.
So it's so difficult to be able to start new, especially if you're low income, you don't have a job, you don't have daycare. They've got babies.
Right.
How are you going to afford the daycare? And is it safe to bring your babies to daycare?
Right. What if your partner, that parent who has legal rights to those children,
absolutely
picks them up?
Yeah. Legally they can.
Right.
Legally they can bring them to school or pick them up from school unless there's some kind of order. So
exactly. I would love to change a number of things with the legal system regarding abuse, because it's so difficult to prove. There's so much work that can be done. I'm sure you've seen it over time. Has it evolved? For me, for 20 years, it really didn't evolve when I kept asking questions. Can you help me? Yes, I'm not being physically hit, but I've got documentation here of what's been going on for 15 years.
Right.
Help me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a very difficult process for me to go through, to the point where I waited for my children to be grown enough.
Right.
Where they had a voice in where they went in their schedule. And that's not okay. We need to help these women get their lives back sooner than waiting for their children to grow, because sometimes you don't know your partner's tendencies until after you have a child with them.
Right. Oh, again, going back to that, they're not going to show their cards, as you say, until that love is there, that commitment is there on the survivor's part.
And that's, I think, what they get out of coming to the shelter. They get that confidence where they feel less alone. Mm-hmm. They're getting information. They're getting therapy. Mm-hmm. And it helps just break those barriers. It's very difficult. And as a parent with children, there are different barriers with contact.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
That makes it really, really hard to leave. And even just knowing that you have to communicate by law. Correct. Until there's an order in place.
Correct. Oftentimes using the kids.
Absolutely.
Correct.
That was a big fear of mine. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people can anticipate that happening. I think there's a very good chance that's going to happen. And the longer a person stays away, the more desperate the abuser gets.
Right.
And the more dangerous it becomes. Mm-hmm. For children too.
Exactly. Right.
And the poor children involved. I just pray that something can get done where we can protect them better. Because they are often in the middle.
They're often
so confusing.
Often in the middle, angry at mom because dad is teaching them certain things. Kids are in the middle, and they're being taught what it looks like to be in a relationship.
Right.
They are being taught specific gender roles. They're being taught that if I'm upset or angry, that this is what I do. I strike out either with my hands or my mouth.
Right.
They're being taught to not express what they need because of fear.
And the side effects.
Right.
The side effects are there for the children too.
Right.
Even if they're not being abused, if they're witnessing it.
Correct.
It's extremely damaging. And I think the stat is 60% of children who are witnessing abuse are also being abused. So factoring that in is hugely important in protecting children.
Right.
Because if you're in court and the female in the relationship is being abused by the partner, whether it's male or female, and the children are witnessing this, that judge should have an inkling in their mind to think, well, there's a good possibility the children are being abused as well. So let's take a peek at this. Let's really look into this and protect them. And I hope we can get there someday. I hope.
Oh, Missy.
It's
and
really hard.
It's a lofty, I don't want to say lofty goal, but we still as a society don't think that abuse is going on.
It's difficult to talk about it.
It's difficult to talk about it. And, let alone acknowledging that our kids are being affected by the abuse as well is tough to see. It's tough to see.
The parental rights over the child safety thing is what's really catching me,
Mm-hmm.
because they're giving rights to a person who may not have been involved at all and may have completely hurt them for most of their lives
Mm-hmm.
because they're their parent, but they're not acknowledging the child safety piece.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, how do we get there?
Right.
What kind of proof do we need to have?
Well, I even see, and this is it's a financial component with perpetrators. They're seeking out custody just so they don't have to pay child support.
Yes.
And, they may have not had a relationship with their children. They don't know where their kids go to school. I mean, nothing like that. And then all of a sudden, boom, relationship is about to be ended and they want custody. Well, Minnesota's a pretty liberal state, giving both parents both physical and legal rights. And so just like you had said, not necessarily taking in the safety piece, but looking at what's, fair and equitable to both parties, that's often missed.
And if the abusive partner has a lot of money,
they
can keep the courts moving.
Keep them rolling and rolling and rolling.
Yes, I had to forego my lawyer early on and do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't equipped to do that.
Right.
And I wasn't being heard at the same time, which was extremely frustrating. I wasn't acknowledged. I had records in that building of a prior order for protection, was never acknowledged. If the abusive partner has money, they can keep legal proceedings going on and bankrupt the person to the point where they can't fight anymore.
No.
And then there's a child safety issue as well. So I was really hoping that maybe you'd seen some progress over over your time with this, Jenny, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to make some progress here.
I actually had made some notes about this, Missy. When you were going to say, have we made any progress in the legal system? And I had wrote as a note, that's a whole separate podcast.
I agree.
The system itself, the legal system, is still used by perpetrators. There's no question about it. And it will continue. And not just, in civil matters, but in criminal matters as well. I hate to say that abusers are smart, because that's acknowledging that, whatever. Yeah. Abusers are manipulative, and they will continue to think in their mind ways to get the control that whatever reason they have for not being in control in the first place, they'll figure out ways where they can get that back.
And they know what to do to their partner to really get under their skin and scare them.
Yeah.
We talk about parental alienation threats, and that's very real, and it's scary, and it's scary enough for people just to hear that, and you're not going to look it up in your house where you're being abused. So what they're telling you is, I'm going to claim parental alienation and you're going to lose the children. And that's enough. I didn't know that existed. So let's think about what we really want to do here. Do we really want to risk that with our children? They've had enough.
And this happens, I would say, 5-6 times a year, where the perpetrator will file the missing persons report. Luckily, we have good relationships with our local police department. So if they're from Anoka County, at least, the officers will call us and check in. But that is their fear. Even crossing the border into Wisconsin. I mean, technically you can't cross the border.
Right.
Keeps her trapped.
Absolutely. It's very trapping. And man, every time that I left, I had to tell him where I was, because I had the kids. And that meant that I felt unsafe still.
Right.
Where can I go to feel safe? And you never feel safe. You're starting to think to yourself, well, maybe I just need to endure it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm safer being at home where I can control things and try to keep the peace and watch over my children and not have to worry about them getting picked up from school without my knowledge. Maybe I should just stay. And that looks different for everyone, but it's real.
But it's real.
It is.
And that's what I also want listeners to get to hear. You know, for people that do stay in a relationship, there's reasons why.
So true.
And we have to acknowledge that. And, you know, I'm never going to be able to say I walked in your shoes. You walk in your shoes. You know what is going to be safest for you and your babies. And if you stay, it's what, if any, safety parameters can I put in place? What kind of safety things can I teach my children? What kind of things escalate my partner? You know, just learning those different things.
And only that person knows those specific things.
Right. I never, ever look at somebody that stays in a relationship as they're weak. You know, why don't they ever leave? I'm sorry. They're doing what is best for themselves and their family and their babies.
Exactly. And that's why educating the community, even if you're not being abused, educating the community as a whole and families is so important, because many times why don't you just leave?
Right.
Why don't you just go? Well, you don't understand what it's like. And you can't judge. And that's another piece where victims living in abuse, they are feeling judged. And unless you have the skills and the education to support them, they're going to feel that way. And that's another piece to isolating them that the abusers count on. And like I've said this before, you need to be the reason why that abuser feels threatened.
Right.
You need to be the reason your brother or sister or mother has confidence that they're not alone. You need to be the person the abuser fears is going to break that isolation. And we can't do that without educating people who aren't being abused.
Correct.
So the community outreach piece is huge. And so important.
Well, and you touched on that with the family and friends piece. You know, because we get individuals that call on our helpline that are not themselves victims of violence, but they want to support a victim of violence. It's super. And so that also is making sure, you know, please don't tell them what they need to do. Please do not be judgmental. Please know that this is something that you can't just walk away from, that, you know, they may go back home. They may go back home several times, and that's okay. Your role is just to be there, be supportive. And,
absolutely.
Yeah. And
statistically, again, it takes 7 times for a person to successfully leave and stay away from an abuser. And if we can tell families these facts, even just to give them an idea so they're not blindsided and so they're not frustrated. And so maybe they can tell their family member or friend, I understand this is hard for you and I'm here when you're ready. There's
an exercise that we do, and it's called Take a Walk in Someone Else's Shoes or something like that. And we do that with our volunteers right away during our volunteer training. Anybody that works here as a volunteer has to go through they go through a 50-hour volunteer training.
Yeah.
And this exercise is really meant for individuals to identify what it is like for somebody who's a victim of violence. You know, it's not just like we have talked, walking out the door. It's, how am I going to support myself? How am I going to get my kids to school? How am I going to keep my kids safe? You know, all these different things. And then being told, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And to keep that strength.
It's so hard. Just the constant setbacks.
Right.
And another piece I was thinking too, with regards to children and how can I keep my children safe, what you just said, it's really difficult when your children are older and have a cell phone. Because they're getting bombarded. There are various apps that the courts have used to monitor that don't work. I can tell you, there are many ways to communicate, and they're used at the child's expense. It's really hard to watch that and to know that that's going to happen, and to have a little faith at the beginning that the court is going to monitor it. And then you get another setback when you realize they're not capable of it.
Right. Literally, this just happened a couple of weeks ago. the judge actually ordered that the child was allowed to have their cell phone for communication with their father. And dad would know at all times where this child is. Dad can call at all times there was no parameters set up that. So, child being called at 9:00 at night, what's your mom doing?
And do they have a location sharing app on?
Mm-hmm.
Do they know where that child is now?
They have to know where child is. Yep. Oh, you're at Burger King.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in the mall. Yeah. You're spending my money at the mall. You can see where it goes.
Absolutely. And I can tell you firsthand that the fear of bumping into someone who's abused you never goes away.
No.
And almost even is harder the more time you have away because you're just anticipating.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Absolutely. And that's been ingrained.
Right.
And that's so hard to shake.
Mm-hmm.
And even for the children, even for my adult children, waiting for that shoe drop, the anticipation and just the anxiety that it's produced in them.
Right.
The strength they've shown in standing up for themselves amazes me and makes me so proud. As adult children, we need to have better policies in place if they've been abused to get them the help they need where they don't have to pay for it.
Okay, Missy, good luck on that.
I know. I think there needs to be something.
I know.
Adult children need therapy, and that's something that really burns to pay.
Oh, yeah.
You've done a lot of work with permanent housing for residents.
I want to go step back just a little bit. So we know emergency shelter is not the catch-all, cure-all. It's not. It's a Band-Aid. And it serves the most important purpose, and that's keeping people safe. So that is the priority. That's the goal of the shelter. Second goal, or other things that are involved with staying at the emergency shelter, is to get the resources, is to get the support. But you're not going to get everything you need in 30, 45 days when you're here.
Yeah.
So I need people, even when I tell people that when they first come into the shelter, you're not going to walk in this door and on day 45 or even day 60, you're not going to leave with everything you need. Seeds will be planted, and the hope is that over time you can open those seeds and you see that some of them are flowers, and you're able to utilize what was initially brought to you. When somebody comes into the shelter, they're in crisis. They're not necessarily hearing everything that you are saying. They have not had a chance to probably breathe, take a deep breath for a very long time, decompress. And so you're on this high, survival high, and you have a lot to figure out in a very, very short time period.
Right.
You need a roof over your head. Okay. In order to get that roof over your head, you need money. Okay? Am I going to find a job in 15 days? Right. Is a landlord going to rent to me as a person that hasn't just gotten a job for 15 days? Can I afford, in this community, Anoka County is probably pretty average. A 2-bedroom is going to be anywhere between $1,300 and $1,500 a month.
And it takes a while to get the child support going.
That's way down the road. So you're going to probably have to apply for child care assistance, which again, 3 months, 6 month wait. So a lot of things aren't solved very quickly.
Barriers, that's scary.
That's absolutely right. Right. So shelter, we know that's a Band-Aid. We get the safety, the resources, the initial resources to just start the process. Where you are going to see any kind of long-term change is with our transitional housing program and follow-up services. With funding, we can maybe help 15, 20 households a year to financially support them.
That's tricky.
Yeah. So we're paying parts of the rent. They're paying parts of the rent. They get the ongoing case management and support. But for all those other households that we work with, it's finding low-income housing. It's putting them in a new community because they can't afford the community that they used to live in. There's no going back to the suburbs. There's no going back to a 2-bedroom house or 3-bedroom house.
Exactly. And then you're weighing the pros and cons with regards to your children if you have them.
Right.
Do we want to take them from their friends and their support in that neighborhood? Do we want to go back? There are all these thoughts. It's not easy.
The schools.
Schools,
another connection for a child where you want to keep them in a consistent place. But so many different things. And that's why I say, it's not just walking out that door.
Yeah, that's really tricky. And I want to be clear about this. We're talking about the barriers to inform people, not to dissuade them from leaving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. But I want to really impress upon listeners just how difficult it is. We need to bring awareness so that we get more funding to shelters, because they're a lot of times the first step for a person getting out.
Right.
And for them to have that backup where you can say, okay, we can help you. We can get you to transitional housing and we can help you find work, and we have time, and you're going to be okay. And that's what's going to facilitate people to go and to leave and feel safe in staying away and not wanting to go back to that suburb, that neighborhood where they felt unsafe and trapped.
When we talk about funding, and it's not being political or anything like that, because it isn't, it's fact. We're in a very scary space right now, and for victim services, and
I know,
and how it relates to federal funding or the funding we receive. So we have to keep a watchful eye, continue to fundraise and raise money in different ways. These agencies need to be in place. We would go back 100 years if we didn't have these spaces available.
I can tell you firsthand that I didn't know what I was looking for when I was looking for help the first time, and I came across a domestic violence shelter. And I didn't even know what I was looking for. I was just looking for help. And if that wasn't there, I would never have known I was, for a fact, in an abusive relationship. Nobody was telling me. And I couldn't explain it myself. I was so confused, and this is just so hurtful. I don't understand what's going on, but something is very wrong.
Right.
Domestic violence shelters are essential. And this is a very big reason why I wanted to speak with you, is just to raise awareness regarding funding. As you said, this will set us back 100 years if we don't fund these emergency shelters. And for statistically, women and children to have a safe place to go.
Correct. And if you look overall, and that's what's sad to me, is you look overall where funding is allocated, in the scheme of things, how much are we spending on forestry? How much are we spending on, these different areas of our government budgets, and where are we missing the boat? And that's
true.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that by not supporting families experiencing violence, you are just creating another generation.
The generational piece to this is huge. What Alexandra House does and what many shelters do for people has to remain. It has to. It saves lives. Do you have any advice for anyone who's living in abuse right now and is questioning what to do?
Even before I would even offer advice or advocacy, I want to let them know that where they are at right now, they're surviving, and that waking up every morning, still being alive, emotionally, physically, they're doing okay. So I want to first acknowledge that you're okay, and you have the skills for what you need to do. You may need some help polishing the skills. But look what you have done so far in this life, and you have made it.
You've survived.
You have survived. So second thing is just calling a crisis line, because you don't have to tell anybody who you are, where you are from, any of that. And you can ask the questions that you would be too embarrassed to say or ask in person. Figuring out with that person on the crisis line, what are some ways to help me before I leave? Can I be saving $5 a week off the monitored money that he monitors? Can I somehow get copies of all of the important documents that I would need? Can I find out before I leave what assets we have? Because I have no clue.
All right. That's a great point.
Yeah. So those kind of things you can be doing behind while you're still in the relationship, and should, if you can. Only because going back after you leave,
it's difficult to get back there.
Right. And you're not going to necessarily find all that. Stuff's going to be burned or,
Exactly.
Rerouted somewhere else. So,
yes,
just be planful in those beginning stages, if it's safe for you to stay there.
Yeah.
Looking at areas in the community that you may want to live, or in a different community, doing some minor research. If it's not safe for you to do the research at home because of computer monitoring and phone monitoring, go to the library.
The library is great.
Yep.
If you can get to the library.
Get to the library.
And the library is harmless.
Yeah.
You're not going to be meeting people there probably.
Right.
Which would be an issue.
Yep. Just really kind of finding out for yourself, okay, is it feasible for me to live in such and such community? Or for safety or financial reasons, am I going to have to look somewhere else? And if it's a whole new community, what's available there for me? So being able to and that's going to empower you too. Just
Absolutely.
by doing those things, that the plan may not take place for a couple of years.
Absolutely.
But if you're doing something and it's going to keep you motivated.
When I went to school, it was really hard, but I was working towards something that was going to potentially give me freedom to do what I wanted to do.
Correct.
If I had to leave, I was going to have the means to leave. And it took a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I love to call them small acts of resistance because they are just the smallest thing. Maybe it was wearing makeup and getting a little bit of, okay, I can do this, and pulling out an extra 20 from the grocery bill when you're checking out and tucking it in your pocket.
Even, cell phones. You can't be on the same cell phone plan as your partner because then it's going to be monitored. So what agencies out there are offering the low cost cell phones? I encourage survivors to do something for themselves every day.
When it's safe and what they can do.
Yeah, and I'm not even talking about the relationship.
Yeah.
I'm talking about if I can get you to brush your teeth because you've been so depressed.
True.
If I can get you to take a walk in the back for just a little bit, that's good.
Yeah, it's important, and self-care is really hard when you don't leave the house.
Right.
And dressing up. I dress up just to dress up.
Yep.
Because I can. I'm like, I feel like curling my hair today.
Right.
And I'm not going to be asked why I'm curling my hair or who I'm trying to impress. I just want to curl my hair for me.
Right.
That's empowering. And just to know they have the freedom to do those things on their own time. They can take a walk when they want to take a walk.
Right.
And those are steps. Those are just steps to take in getting yourself back.
Yep.
And really reclaiming your time and yourself. Before we go, I want to just touch upon the Hope Fest that's coming up for Alexandra House on September 27th. I'm so excited for this. Do you want to explain to everybody, there's a full 4 hours of activities and it's just a beautiful day planned of vendor fairs and games and a kids dash and a walk for awareness and a program. And how people can get involved.
Yeah, so it is coming up on September 27th from 9 to 1. We host it up at the Anoka City Hall Plaza up in the city of Anoka. We've been doing the Hope Fest itself for many years. We used to do a walk prior to that, but it's a time to come together as a community to raise awareness, to support families that have lost loved ones in the last year, honoring those that we have lost. It's positive because it's like, this is a good day because we're letting others know that this is happening. And like you said, we have a little walk. It's only a mile long. It's beautiful, actually. So we all walk together. We have local vendors that are present. And resources, actually. Some of the vendors are actual resources. We got stuff for the kids. Kids get their faces painted. Good food. I will say that as well. And that's all part of the ticket price. So for adults, I believe it's $30. You can still sign up. You can also just show up that day. It's just we can't guarantee a t-shirt because you get a t-shirt too. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a great day, and we're honored to have you speak on that day.
I'm excited. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah.
It's a very important day. It's Alexandra House has a very special place in my heart. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, and I'm just honored to be involved. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I want to encourage everyone to visit the website.
Correct.
alexandrahouse.org. Mm-hmm. And there's valuable information for anyone seeking help, guidance, or a better understanding of domestic and sexual violence. The site includes a direct number to reach an advocate, which is a very important lifeline for anyone. Mm-hmm. Trust me, they're amazing. They're amazing people. Each of them makes a profound difference every day, quietly, behind the scenes. And they depend on our support to continue that work. Please take a moment to visit alexandrahouse.org. Share their resources. Consider supporting them in any way you can. Jenny, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome, Missy.
Thank you for your over 3 decades of dedication, compassion, and leadership at Alexandra House. The impact you've had on so many lives is truly inspiring.
Oh, thanks.
And I appreciate you very much.
Well, right back at you.
Thank you.
Yeah.